Become powerful, charming, and tough. Here I've crafted a custom spell that doesn't look too flash, but can one-shot anything in the Oblivion Gates. Or if you want to be flashy, how about learning how to drop a tactical nuke on your enemies? You can also charm any target, buff yourself like crazy, make super summons, and much more. Crafting custom spells in Oblivion Remastered is one of the most broken things you can do without feeling like you're cheesing the game. It's one of the most fun parts of Oblivion, especially if you've just come from Skyrim, which we all suspect didn't include the feature because Todd had a golf game or something that day and thought it would take too much effort to get right. So in Oblivion you can find altars of spell making. There you can craft a custom spell, which you can then equip and use as long as you have the skill and mana to use it. So let's walk through where you find the altar, how it works, how to get the most out of custom spells, and finally, what are some broken recommendations. So how do you craft your first spell? After exiting the Imperial Sewer, you'll be free to approach the game as you see fit. If you want to rush getting your custom spells, I recommend heading to the Arcane University in the south of the Imperial City. There you can ask about joining the Mages Guild, and then if you set the quest to active, you'll be sent around Cyrodiil visiting different mage guilds to get their letters of recommendation. You'll have to complete fairly straightforward and easy quests. If you want to skip this process, there is another altar of spellmaking you can visit early, but I don't recommend it as the process of getting recommendations actually gives you the tools you need to get started spellmaking. The tools being cold hard cash as well as spells. You'll be taught a handful of spells, but will also be able to buy key ones from the members of the guilds. I forgot to say, you can fast travel from the start of the game, so you can just fast travel to the university, then fast travel to the guilds. Just be sure to look at the bottom left of the screen for the spell purchase button when you do talk to the guild members. So once you have all the recommendations, head back to the university and you'll be accepted in. From there you can work your way up the ranks. However, what is now available to you is the Praxo-Geographical Center and within the Altar of Spellmaking. Remember before I said you need spells to make spells? Well, notice the effects on the left of the screen. These are raw spell effects you can add to your spell, and this list will populate based on what spells you've already learnt. So if you have a spell that deals frost damage, you'll now have the frost damage effect that you can add to your spell. If you have a spell that lowers frost resistance, you'll have an effect that lowers frost resistance. Does that make sense? I hope so, because that's about as complicated as it gets. You only need to have learnt the spell with the effect once, and using scrolls doesn't count. Having two spells that cast shock damage, for example, will give you the same base effect, and buying a more powerful version of the spell doesn't matter at all, so buy cheap spells early to give you the effects you need to make more powerful spells. I use shock damage as an example, so let's take a look at what happens when I select it. It gives you a bunch of options, first being its range, which impacts what kind of spell it is. Next is the magnitude, which is the strength of the effect. If you're making a damaging effect, this will be its damage. If it's a buff, it's how big of a buff you'll get. Next is area, which tells the game how big you want the spell radius to be. So the bigger the area of shock damage, the more nuclear the explosion, hitting multiple targets, friend or foe. So only really good in caves where there are no allies. The duration is how long the spell lasts. For buffs or summons, this is essential for a longer duration. For damaging spells, this turns the magnitude of damage from a one hit to a damage per second, which is why it becomes so expensive to craft. More on that soon. Below that to the left is the projected mana cost / the minimum level needed to cast it. To the right of that is the cost it's going to be to make that spell. You'll also need to name your spell before you craft it at the top. So now you'll see why doing a handful of quests that make you better as a mage are beneficial before you get your hands dirty here. Speaking of hands, the range. If set to touch, this will be your reach, melee only. You reach out and touch a target. If using a damaging spell, this will hurt a target in melee. If using a heal or a buff, it will transfer it to an ally you touch, or enemy if you roll that way. If you set the range to target, you'll throw a spell out at range. This costs more mana to cast than touch and costs more cash to craft, as well as making it more difficult to cast based on your skill. Range, after all, is a huge advantage. Last is self range. With this one, you'll be casting a spell on yourself. In the case of damaging spells, yes, you will hurt yourself. You'll ideally use this range for buffs to self-apply them. Now, pumping magnitude, area, and duration up will make your mana cost skyrocket, as well as the minimum skill needed to use that spell. Shock damage, for example, sits under the destruction tree, so without high destruction, you won't even be able to cast powerful destruction spells you could make. Even if you could, you probably don't have the mana pool to cast them. Yes, a high intelligence influences the total mana you have, and it's retroactive. For more, you'll need to level up and equip gear that boosts your pool. If you want to increase your skills, it seems like the higher rank spell you cast of a school, the faster your experience in that skill will rise, unlike the original. So if you're Journeyman, cast Journeyman spells with high spell costs. Let's circle back. A ranged 100 damage, 100 feet AoE, 120 second burn duration spell will cost 999 plus mana to cast and require destruction level 100. Without some serious endgame character breaking, this won't be possible for you for a long while. Also, you'll need well over 600,000 cash. Instead, let's try something a little better. Let's put shock damage at a magnitude of 50 at range with no area or duration. It's a simple burst damage shock spell. It'll cost 45 mana to cast, which is easy enough, and only costs 135 to make. But let's further improve it. We can add another effect to it. If we wanted to, we could fortify our magicka on cast, improving our magicka pool. We could fortify our attributes, give ourselves a shield, or even summon a minion. But let's make the spell more focused on damage. Add some frost damage to the spell, and now we're hitting enemies for 2 damage types, lowering the chance they can resist it. We also could make it so it does frost damage over time instead by reducing the magnitude and increasing the duration, or we can simply make it do 50 points of frost damage on the target as well. Like mentioned, adding 2 damage types reduces the damage your targets can resist, and it also seems more efficient than simply making a stronger singular effect. For example, bumping shock damage up to 100 needs destruction at skill level 100 and takes 111 mana versus only 74 mana having 100 damage split across shock and frost. You could then continue to add more effects to this spell like fire damage, but let's leave it as is so you can see it in action. Before we set off, let's make a broken spell. First, you're going to want to go here and pick up weakness to frost, shock, and fire spells from this gentleman. They're fairly cheap, and buying them will unlock the effect for you. You want to then craft a spell that has a duration of either frost, shock, or fire weakness to your target, ideally 5 seconds. Use touch, as you'll be able to get more spells off at a higher magnitude this way. Then add damage to the respective element. I went with a spell that has weakness to frost on touch and frost damage on touch. Go as high as you're allowed to within your skill. Do damage with frost damage, though having it go longer than 1 second is good as it reaps the benefit of the stacking frost weakness. Now when you use this spell, your target will get weaker to frost and take a massive burst of it. To actually break this spell, you can add a weakness to magic first, then weakness to the element, then the element's damage. This double weakness stacks, so 100 points of frost damage will be 400 damage. I warn you though, this will make the game ridiculously easy, so maybe stick to what I've done instead. So let's take a look at that. Here I enter an Oblivion Gate. As you expect, things here are resistant to fire, but not so much frost and shock. My range frost shock spell does extreme damage, but doesn't always take out targets. The frost shock spell, on the other hand, pun intended, will one-hit KO anything but the stronger Daedra, which actually falls super quick to the stacking effect. For comparison, let's look at a normal fire damage spell. Yeah, you're gonna be tearing through these gates. Another spell you can try is charming your target. Since charming costs quite a bit the longer duration you have it set to, you'll notice the magnitude of the effects you can get from merchant spells are rather low. If you keep the duration to 1 second, you can increase the magnitude to maximum and still be able to cast the spell. If you cast it on an NPC, then immediately talk to them, they'll have the effect applied through the whole conversation. So men, all you really need is 1 second to charm the pants off anyone. As you may already know, having a high influence over someone helps you get the information you need out of them. Some quick tips now. Efficiency is better than power. it's often better to craft multiple efficient spell effects on one spell rather than one overpowered one, as it usually guzzles magicka up. Spell costs scale. A little more magnitude can dramatically increase the cost, so balance is key. Some powerful effects require being a master in that magic school to craft, aka 100 skill. You can layer different effects together in one spell. For example, Paralyze plus damage health makes your enemies helpless. Spell absorption, reflection, and resist magic. Enemies, especially late game mages and Demora, can absorb or reflect your spells. Consider redundancy spells that counter this or have backup weapon attacks. I mentioned Paralyze before, but you can craft a large AoE Paralyze spell to use as an oh shit button, and it only needs a short duration, simply knocking everyone to the ground, letting you run away or run past them. Making a spell with drain health and absorb health will be the ultimate sustained fight spell. You can also make an escape spell with invisibility, fortify speed, and chameleon. A funny combo is to drain enemy strength, endurance, then health. Draining endurance tanks the enemy's total HP, taking their strength makes it so they can't deal damage or carry anything, then draining health will finish off the tiny HP pool. Spell cost reduction gear and a higher mana pool will be your best friend early. Notice that the Fortify attribute buff can be changed to any attribute. Notable is Luck if you want a short but powerful buff to apply before you open chests. Only 1 second is needed. Intelligence is good if you want to increase your mana pool, Endurance if you want more health and regen, Strength if you want more carry weight and damage, Agility for range damage and daggers and short swords, Willpower for more mana regen, Personality to increase your bartering, since Charm is better for conversations, and Speed to move around faster in the world. All increase your attributes above the 100 cap. Now, I've hinted at it, but you might add a buff to Personality on the Charm spell we mentioned before to make the ultimate NPC influencing effect. You can also make the ultimate fight starting buff spell by having a summon minion spell attached to a large buff and a bound weapon and armor combo. The possibilities are huge, but like any RPG, that means you need to raise your level and skills to get full use out of it. So, off you go. Ciao friends.